Tessa Morgan was never just another teenager with a phone. She was a voice, a witness, and maybe a threat. When her blurred final video appeared online with flashing lights and the words, her TikTok account had hundreds of thousands of followers who tuned in daily for her blend of humor, activism, and personal stories. Her content wasn't just about viral dances and product hauls. She spoke openly about mental health, injustice, and the problems she saw in her own community. Her car was still parked outside, but she wasn't home. Her cat was unfed. Food from 2 nights ago still sat on the counter. Something was wrong. But the deeper people dug, the more it seemed like someone somewhere was working to bury the truth. She uploaded a video just 2 days after Tessa vanished, breaking down in front of her camera. Tessa had told her it was saved to the cloud as a backup. It contained a short 10-second video, clearly filmed on a phone. The clip showed what appeared to be Tessa's pink phone case lying on the ground, cracked with a police cruiser parked nearby. Old clips resurfaced where she called out abuse of power. People who followed her closely remembered a recent live video she had done, barely a week before she vanished. In it, she mentioned filming a disturbing encounter between police and a homeless man near a bus station. She never shared the footage publicly, but hinted she had saved it somewhere secure. But the public wasn't convinced. Why was her footage deleted? Why was her name flagged? Artists painted murals of her face, college students organized rallies, and digital activists compiled every clue into massive online databases. Tessa's story was no longer just about one girl. It was about how easily truth could disappear when power wanted it buried. Why was no one looking into the officers connected to the cruiser seen near her phone? That detail took on new meaning once people realized her cloud storage had been wiped clean. Screenshots from that live stream started circulating, and digital investigators started tracing her last known movements using GPS data, public security cameras, and time-stamped social media posts. Her last videos, once dismissed as dramatic, now looked like digital breadcrumbs she had intentionally left behind. Her followers believed she had been trying to expose something and someone was trying even harder to silence her. Then came another anonymous leak. This time it was a screenshot from a local law enforcement database. It showed a report filed 2 days before Tessa disappeared, flagging her name under a category titled Community Watch Disruptive Observers. It wasn't a crime report. It wasn't even formal, but it showed that someone inside the system had eyes on her. For a split second, the cruiser's license plate was visible before the video cut off. But when Mia got in, the folder was gone. Not corrupted, not hidden, just gone. According to the building's entry log, she had signed in, but there was no record of her signing out. The security cameras outside the center were oddly offline during the same hour. A technician from a nearby business shared a clip from his rooftop camera, which showed a young woman who looked like Tessa walking briskly down the street, looking over her shoulder. 2 minutes later, a police cruiser appeared behind her. She checked the recycling bin, the archives, everything empty. Even Tessa's personal videos, vlogs, and photos began disappearing one by one from her other linked accounts. Something or someone was removing them. Her audience began to speculate that Tessa had been hacked or worse, that law enforcement had access to her digital presence and was actively erasing it. In the video, she revealed texts Tessa had sent her just hours before she disappeared. One message stood out. "They know I filmed it. If I go missing, it's not an accident." When journalists asked about the plate, police denied any knowledge. They labeled the Telegram video as fake and the disappearance as runaway behavior. That sentence spread across social media like wildfire. Hashtags multiplied. Hashtag justice for Tessa and hashtag find Tessa began trending on both Twitter and TikTok. For many, this was no longer a missing person case, it was a possible cover-up. The story of a Gen Z girl with a phone camera was just beginning to unravel something far bigger than anyone could have imagined. Living in Portland, a city already tense with protests and deep distrust in law enforcement, Tessa started filming incidents she witnessed on the street, altercations between police and civilians, particularly involving the homeless and marginalized. Her followers called her brave, others called her reckless. "Don't trust the cops?" It wasn't just a warning, it was the beginning of a digital uprising that would expose a dark war between Gen Z activists and the system meant to protect them. 19-year-old Tessa Morgan wasn't just another social media personality, she was a voice. On a rainy Thursday night, Tessa uploaded a video that stopped people mid-scroll. Officers suggested she might have run away or gone off-grid on purpose. They described her as emotionally unstable, citing old medical records that had nothing to do with the case. But online, her followers were already piecing together a different story. They shared screenshots of her final messages, including one to a friend that read, "I think they're watching me." Reddit threads and TikTok deep dives exploded overnight. The theory forming was chilling. Tessa had been targeted because she filmed something she wasn't supposed to. The caption read, "If anything happens to me, don't trust the cops." The video itself was chaotic, brief, shaky footage that appeared to be filmed from behind a parked car. There were distant police lights, muffled voices, and what looked like someone running. The video cut out suddenly. At first, people thought it was a stunt. Maybe she was trying to raise awareness or tease a bigger investigation. But then she stopped posting. No more videos, no live streams, nothing. Concern quickly grew. Her friends began calling her phone, which rang out and eventually went straight to voicemail. They visited her apartment. When her disappearance was reported to the police, the initial response was underwhelming. As days passed with no word, her disappearance transformed from a local mystery into a national concern. Mia Hartley, one of Tessa's closest friends and also a content creator, was the first to speak out online. Mia tried logging into Tessa's cloud account, hoping to find the footage her friend had mentioned. Then came a new development that shifted the story. An anonymous post appeared in a private Telegram group used by digital activists and researchers. Online sleuths quickly traced the plate to a police vehicle assigned to a specific unit. That detail never made it into official records, but the public was no longer convinced. Young creators across platforms began resharing Tessa's original content. As the online conversation intensified, more details about Tessa's final days began to emerge. What they found raised serious questions. Tessa had visited a local community center that night, one known for hosting police outreach programs. People started putting the puzzle together. The timing of everything, the missing footage, the offline cameras, the eerie final video suggested a calculated erasure of evidence. Journalists tried to get answers. When pressed, the police stated Tessa had no official involvement with any investigations, and there was no reason to suspect foul play. Despite the police's dismissal, the movement demanding answers only grew louder. Artists painted murals of her face, college students organized rallies, and digital activists compiled every clue into massive online databases. Tessa's story was no longer just about one girl, it was about how easily truth could disappear when power wanted it buried. Nearly 2 months after Tessa Morgan's disappearance, the internet received its most chilling revelation yet. An encrypted email was sent to the Signal Post, an independent digital news outlet known for covering government corruption. The subject line read, "PD confidential, do not ignore." Inside was a download link. What the file contained would shake the entire case wide open. It was bodycam footage, uncut and unredacted, dated the same night Tessa vanished. The video began with routine patrol audio, officers joking and talking as they cruised through downtown Portland. Around the 20-minute mark, things changed. The cruiser pulled up to a dimly lit alley where a group of teenagers stood huddled. But a deeper fear began to settle. If this could happen to someone as public as Tessa, how many others had vanished with no camera rolling? Investigative journalists and online researchers uncovered something unexpected. Tessa hadn't been acting alone. She had filmed over a dozen incidents in the past year, but never uploaded them under her own name. Instead, the footage would appear in anonymous social media accounts, sometimes watermarked only with a tiny symbol, an eye behind a lens. The police had noticed. Some trained facial recognition software to identify officers in leaked footage. NPR. Gen Z activists doubled down on encryption, collaboration, and exposing truth through digital footprints. Tessa's story had become more than a tragedy. It was a catalyst. Young people who once followed her for lighthearted content were now becoming citizen journalists, watchdogs, and data analysts. The fight was no longer just about one missing girl. It was about who controlled the narrative and who had the tools to challenge it. Though vague, the language suggested coordination, not coincidence. Still, no arrests were made. Marches stretched from Portland to cities across the country. Gen Z organizers set up live stream booths at rallies, a warning about unchecked power, erased truth, and how fragile digital footprints could be. Yet even as those in power tried to erase her, she remained. In hashtags, in murals, in encrypted drives passed from one teenager to the next. Tessa Morgan wasn't just a girl who disappeared. She was a spark. And what she started would not be forgotten. QR codes linked to digital evidence folders. Young people gathered not just to mourn, but to share tools, data, and tactics. What started as scattered grief turned into focused resistance. No disciplinary action. The department issued a short press release extending condolences, stating there was no evidence of criminal involvement. The digital war between this tech-savvy generation and traditional law enforcement had begun to escalate. A small shoe. Nearby, the remains of a shallow grave. The authorities were called immediately, and within a day, dental records confirmed what many feared: it was Tessa Morgan. The internal documents leaked earlier suggested law enforcement had started tracking these anonymous uploads and attempting to link them to specific individuals. Her followers flooded social media with tributes, tagging her old videos with hearts and broken emojis. Anonymous hackers, believed to be affiliated with decentralized activist groups, released thousands of internal police department emails. The documents were damning. One email showed an officer casually mentioning that Tessa was being watched due to disruptive digital behavior. Another contained a list titled Known Observers, which included usernames later linked to members of the Lens. But alongside the grief came fury. No official cause of death was announced. The coroner's report listed it simply as undetermined, a vague term that offered no answers. Her family received limited details, and their requests for transparency were denied. The flagged report with Tessa's name now made more sense. She had been part of a quiet but growing movement called The Lens. It wasn't an organization in the traditional sense: no offices, no leaders, no funding, but a scattered network of young activists across the country using technology to document and expose abuse of power, especially by law enforcement. Members used encrypted chat apps, burner phones, and hidden cameras to avoid detection. They filmed quietly, edited cautiously, and uploaded anonymously. Most were teenagers. The body cam had captured more than just a moment. It had exposed a dangerous truth hiding behind a badge. The body cam caught muffled words, a sharp exchange, and then a hand reached for Tessa's phone. One teen, age 17, had been detained for nearly 2 days without charges after filming an arrest in a parking garage. His camera and phone were never returned. Another Lens contributor disappeared shortly after tweeting about police raids near a protest site. His last known location was near the same area Tessa had vanished. He was never found. Tessa's supporters had been right all along. She had encountered police the night she disappeared, and the footage proved it. Independent video experts authenticated the footage, confirming it had not been edited. In response, local activists organized a mass protest at City Hall demanding accountability, transparency, and a full investigation. But the police department dismissed the leak as doctored and out of context, refusing to confirm or deny its authenticity. They claimed the footage did not match any of their active duty records, calling it possibly staged. She backed away, and within seconds, the scene became chaotic. One officer shoved her to the ground, the camera turned, and all that could be seen was a flash of pink or cracked phone case on the wet pavement. Then the screen went black, but the audio kept running. Footsteps, a thud, the sound of a car door closing, and then silence. The camera shook as one officer stepped out and confronted the group. Among them was a girl in a gray hoodie holding up her phone. Tessa. The officer demanded she stop filming. She didn't move. The leak ignited a firestorm online. Major media outlets covered it within hours. But the damage was done. The plate number from the cruiser in the video matched the one shown in the anonymous Telegram post weeks earlier. Still, there were no arrests, no suspension of officers, no formal charges. As the fallout from the leaked bodycam continued, a new dimension of the case began to emerge. Tessa had been one of the most active members. Other members of the Lens started coming forward anonymously at first, then through trusted journalists. Despite the danger, more activists joined the movement. They live-streamed routine patrols. They mapped police stops using real-time data. The generational divide was now impossible to ignore. While police departments doubled down on surveillance, it was a cold morning in late October when a hiker in the Columbia River Gorge stumbled upon something buried beneath a pile of moss and broken branches. The news sent shockwaves through her community. Memorials popped up overnight, candles flickering under street murals of her face. At the same time, a second wave of digital leaks struck. There were even references to a cleanup protocol for incidents involving social media surveillance targets. But the public wasn't silent. Protests reignited, bigger than before. Tessa's name became a symbol not just of loss, but of warning. A warning about unchecked power, erased truth, and how fragile digital footprints could be. Yet even as those in power tried to erase her, she remained. In hashtags, in murals, in encrypted drives passed from one teenager to the next. Tessa Morgan wasn't just a girl who disappeared. She was a spark, and what she started would not be forgotten.